Good morning, everybody. You're tuned in to our mid-morning edition of Arirang News on this Wednesday, August 26th, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Sin Se-min. Before we begin, these are the stories we're following at this hour. The strongest typhoon of the year, Bavi, is fast approaching the Korean peninsula. The storm, packing strong winds and heavy rain, is set to hit the capital region early on Thursday, and authorities are on high alert. Doctors across the nation launch a 3-day strike in protest of the government's unilateral reform plans for the medical sector. The South Korean government orders all doctors to return to work, and violators could face up to 3 years in prison or have their license suspended. The chances of South Korea raising its nationwide social distancing measures to the highest level 3 are increasing by the day, as the country adds over 3,100 new COVID-19 cases in the past 2 weeks alone. Our top story this morning, Typhoon Bavi, the most powerful storm to hit South Korea this year, is fast approaching the Korean peninsula. On Tuesday evening, which was just last night, it was already directly affecting the southern island of Jeju. For more, we have our Han Sung-woo on the line. So Sung-woo, it looks like Jeju is under direct impact.
Yeah, the situation is not good, Se-min, not good at all. The Korean Meteorological Administration issued a typhoon warning effective 11 p.m. Tuesday as wind speeds really started to pick up. Winds are currently blowing at up to 30 meters a second, and the number can jump even higher. Speeds over 40 make it nearly impossible for even grown adults to walk outside. As for rainfall, its forecast precipitation will reach 100 to 300 millimeters in Jeju and the southwestern parts of Jeollado province over the next 3 days. Over 2,000 ships and boats have been removed from local piers, and Jeju International Airport has canceled around 330 flights that were scheduled for Wednesday. Officially classified by the weather agency as a very powerful mid-sized typhoon, Bavi is already being evaluated as one of the strongest tropical storms to ever hit the country, along with 2003's Memi and Chaba in 2016.
Right, Chung, as you said, the typhoon is moving fast upwards to the Korean peninsula, all the way to the capital of Seoul sometime tomorrow. What about the people? How can the people living in the path of that typhoon stay safe?
Well, South Korea's Ministry of the Interior and Safety advises citizens to refrain from visiting areas susceptible to flooding and locations vulnerable to landslides. People should also stay indoors with their doors and windows securely closed and their multimedia devices turned on for emergency updates. In urban areas, construction sites are to be avoided as fierce winds can cause building materials to potentially blow over and severely injure passersby. The government is also urging those in rural areas to refrain from going out to their rice paddies. The typhoon is forecast to approach Seoul by Thursday morning, bringing heavy rain and powerful winds to the whole country. Back to you, Se-min.
Thank you. That was our Han Sung-woo with the latest on the Typhoon Bavi approaching the Korean peninsula. Now, the typhoon warning is also imposed in the northern part of the Korean peninsula as Typhoon Bavi is set to directly pass over two Koreas. North Korean leader Jong-un presided over a politburo meeting on Tuesday to discuss COVID-19 situation and the typhoon. The regime's state-run mouthpiece said this morning that its leader Kim told members of the Workers' Party to minimize the damage to the people and farms that are likely to be inflicted by Typhoon Bavi. As for COVID-19, the leader Kim ordered the end to any flaws related to the state's emergency quarantine system. And now to the developing story on the push and pull between the Doctors Association and the South Korean government. With the doctors proceeding with their planned nationwide strike starting today, the South Korean government has given the doctors an ultimatum. They say if doctors don't return to work, those will be held responsible for neglecting their duty and could face up to 3 years in prison or have their license suspended. For more on this fluid situation, we have our Kim Do-yeon standing by at one of the major hospitals in capital Seoul. So Do-yeon, the government did give another announcement this morning. Tell us more.
Se-min, yesterday, just a couple hours ago, Health Minister Bang Neung-woo imposed an order on all doctors to return to their work as soon as possible. And if they don't, he said, the country has no options but to pursue judiciary proceedings.
The current legislation punishes those against the order with up to 3 years in prison or up to $25,000 in fines, or cancellation or suspension of their medical license.
Such a hardline stance from the government comes as the nation has been seeing a large number of new COVID-19 cases, and the government says that the country cannot afford to have those doctors away from their workplaces. This comes despite the Doctors Association and Trainee Doctors Association having rounds of discussions with the government, including Prime Minister Chung since Sunday. The doctors are against the government's reform plan, which includes upping admission quotas at med schools to recruit an additional 4,000 doctors over the next decade. Doctors claim it's the country's bad healthcare policies, not the shortage of doctors, that have caused the problems in provincial areas.
So, Toyan, are hospitals, let alone the patients, prepared for this type of strike? Why don't we talk about the hospital where you're reporting from?
I mean, that's right. Here at Seoul National University Hospital, a major medical center in Seoul, some 510 of the 620 interns and residents have gone on strike, and around 200 professor-level doctors have joined in starting today. However, that was until this morning, and at 8 a.m., the government issued an order to have those that work in the Seoul metropolitan area return to their hospitals, so we will have to see how those doctors react. In addition to major hospitals, local hospitals will join the strike starting today. Medical students offered a license exam have also canceled their registration in protest. That's all I have for you at this hour. Back to you, Semin.
Thank you. That was our Kim Do-yeon reporting live from the Seoul National University Hospital. And South Korea currently stands at a COVID-19 crossroads as the government considers reintroducing intense social distancing measures to level 3 with the resurgence of COVID-19 cases across the nation. South Korea's prime minister said this morning that the nation's virus prevention system is reaching its critical point, but added that level 3 social distancing measures will bring both economic and social activities to a complete halt. He added the most urgent business is to fully and properly implement the level 2 social distancing guidelines and called on the public for their cooperation in practicing those guidelines. South Korea recently added a total of 3,110 new coronavirus cases in the past 2 weeks alone, which translates to an average of 222 cases a day. South Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety has approved a phase 1 clinical trial on a COVID-19 vaccine being produced by South Korean pharmaceutical company Celltrion. According to the company, with the latest approval, researchers will administer its CTP59 vaccine to 9 patients with mild COVID-19 symptoms. Now, this CTP59 is a genetically modified antibody treatment that the firm is developing. And it is also the first to receive clinical approval in South Korea. The World Health Organization's latest weekly update on the COVID-19 situation worldwide shows there has been an overall decrease in the number of infections. But it also indicates that the virus may be spreading to other regions. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
The WHO has released its latest weekly epidemiological data gathered from August 17th to the 23rd, showing some mixed signs regarding the infection rates worldwide. The data reveals over 1.7 million new COVID-19 cases and 39,000 new deaths were reported to the WHO over the period, which is a 4% decrease in cases, but a 5% increase in deaths compared to the previous week. While a decrease in weekly cases were reported in most parts of the world, Southeast Asia and the Eastern Mediterranean region showed an increase of 4% each. In the U.S., virus numbers have been spread to the Midwest, with a spike in cases in Ohio, Missouri, Wisconsin, and Illinois. According to the Wall Street Journal, the weekly change in COVID-19 cases in these regions has been higher in rural regions, as outbreaks are linked to social events rather than workplace exposures or living situations. European countries, which have been hit hard, are beginning to see a resurgence, with Germany and Spain seeing their highest number of infections since April. In response, Germany may soon ditch its localized COVID-19 measures and begin national measures. With the second most infections in the world, Brazil has so far reported over 3.6 million cases and more than 115,000 deaths. In addition, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro's eldest son has tested positive, becoming the fourth member of the president's direct family to be infected. Japan is also seeing numbers jump back up as the nation reported 716 cases on Tuesday after seeing new cases slow during the past week. With resurgences being reported, health authorities around the world fear the pandemic is far from over. 이 승재, Arirang News.
U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Stephen Biegun met with Russian officials on Tuesday for talks on North Korea and the crisis in Belarus. During his visit to Moscow, Biegun sat down with senior Russian diplomats, including Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Now, the two sides discussed issues surrounding the Korean Peninsula amid stalled Pyongyang-Washington denuclearization talks. And in a statement released after the talks, Russia's foreign ministry warned that the U.S. that it's against sanctions and political pressure on Belarus. Also discussed was the issue of Russian dissident Alexei Navalny, who recently fell into a coma after suspected poisoning. The sister of North Korean leader is now in control of Pyongyang's ruling Workers' Party. Now, this was confirmed Tuesday by South Korea's defense minister, and he said the leader's sister Kim Yo-jong has been delegated with more power and is yielding ever-increasing power within the regime. Our Chung Tae-hyun with more.
Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, is sitting in one of the most important political posts in the regime. Speaking to lawmakers at the National Assembly on Tuesday, South Korea's Defense Minister Jong said Kim Yo-jong has taken over the party's Organization and Guidance Department. The OGD is responsible for checking around 3 million party members to ensure they're following the teaching of the North regime and remain loyal to Kim Jong-un. Experts also believe Kim Yo-jong has carved out a key role in North Korea.
Kim Yo-jong, the first deputy director of the department, appears to be a partner in charge of not only the regime's external sectors, but also overall state affairs.
Seoul's defense minister said Kim Yo-jong's official title would be first vice director of the party's Organization and Guidance Department. And she has a key role in shaping the North's relationship with South Korea and the U.S. He added Seoul would respond with military action if the North launched a military provocation against the South. Jang Tae-hyun, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., the Republican National Convention is into its second of 4 nights with the First Lady Melania Trump taking the center stage. Having focused on anti-bullying initiatives during her time at the White House, Melania Trump may offer one of the convention's more engaging and positive addresses. Her speech is expected to include reflections of her experiences over the last 3.5 years as the FLOTUS. Watchers say she has never opened up about her life as an immigrant, but talking about it may help her husband's re-election chances. Also taking the podium is U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who has recorded his remarks in Jerusalem during an official trip to the Middle East. A probe is ongoing into whether he violated the Hatch Act, which prohibits those in the executive branch using their official positions to engage in overt political activities.
Good morning. One of the strongest typhoons to hit Korea in years, Typhoon Bavi, is on its way. It will pass to the west of Jeju this afternoon and travel along the west coast in the early hours of tomorrow. For a closer look, 서귀포 on Jeju will be hit hard at 2 p.m. this afternoon, 목포 in 전라남도 province at 8 tonight, and Seoul will feel the strongest effect at 5 a.m. on Thursday. Typhoon warnings and advisories are in place for seas and land down south, while a preliminary typhoon advisory is in place across much of the country. The typhoon will bring downpours and powerful winds along the west coast and Jeju. In fact, Bavi is already bringing heavy showers and strong winds to Jeju Island. In fact, those on the west coast of Jeju could experience violent winds of 40 to 60 meters a second, so please be extra careful. It's going to be a very stuffy day with highs in the 30s in most parts of the country this afternoon. Stay alert and be safe. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And before we go, we have the latest on coronavirus situation here in South Korea. Local officials have moments ago said that South Korea added a total of 320 new coronavirus cases on Tuesday alone, piercing through the 300 mark again in the past 3 days. Now, let me repeat, South Korea added 320 new coronavirus cases on Tuesday alone, going back up to the 300 mark again. Now, that's a wrap for us at this hour on Arirang News, but we will be back with more of the day's headlines coming up at noon Korea time, so stay close. Thanks for watching and goodbye.